News.
Wow, Mike, you look terrific. How you liking the new job?
It's terrific, Meg. I've lost so much weight since working at Polylift, I need new pants.
How about we get you into something more comfortable?
Bet you my old bell bottoms will fit.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Get a job that'll make you fit. Polylift offers competitive wages and an active 9 to 5 that'll get your wife's attention. Visit poly-lift.com for more details or call or text 435-999-9309. Polylift is locally owned and operated.
Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September 2022.
That's almost a whole year.
I know. My half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the Valley.
I better head there now.
Governor inside your homes, hitting the issues that matter most to you. This is Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on stations throughout the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association.
And good evening, everyone. It is time for Direct Link. We're so pleased to have Governor Spencer Cox joining us tonight, and we hope you'll join us. We'd love to hear from you. You'll have a chance to talk to the governor. If you'd like to call into the show, ask the governor a question. It's a toll-free call at 855-399-6800. 855-399-6800 is our number. And we're happy to have your questions for the governor. It doesn't matter if you're in Cache Valley, out in the Window Basin, over in Canyon Country, or in Utah's Washington County. We'd love your calls tonight to ask the governor a question and get him there. Governor, hope you're having a fine night tonight. How are you?
Tim, I'm doing really well. Thank you. It's great to be with you again. It's especially great to be with my rural family and friends. And I'm excited to take some questions tonight. I apologize. We're going to be a little shorter, but we have a special guest that's going to fill in for me the second half hour. Indeed.
In fact, the governor does need to leave at 6:30. So again, wherever you're listening tonight, our listeners along the Wasatch Front or wherever, you're calling in from the state, it's toll free 855-399-6800. In case you're wondering who I am, my name is Tim Nesmith. I am the morning show co-host at KSUB Talk Radio 107.7 and 590 AM in Cedar City. We've been carrying this program since its inception, and we're just delighted to have you. But again, 855-399-6800 if you'd like to talk to the governor, and that phone is up and working now. Governor, I'd like to start this evening on maybe a bit of a different note, if we could. I like to get to know people when we're having visits, and there's not a lot of time when you're on the campaign trail or in the busy day-to-day life. So I want to get to know Spencer Cox for just a minute, if we can, tonight, and start off by asking you, what is it you're looking forward to? What great tradition do you have in your family that you're looking forward to happening during this holiday season, or it may have already happened during this holiday season? What is one of the things about this time of year that gives you some great happiness and joy?
Well, Tim, it's very kind, and I really appreciate the question. We don't get questions like this very often, and so I'm always happy to talk about what we do. We have a tradition in our family that has been going on for many, many years, and it actually takes place on Christmas Eve. It's pretty simple. It's my parents started it. My dad. We all get together with the family, and now the extended family. Lots of kids and lots of grandkids, and we get together. We have a very simple meal on Christmas Eve. It's my mom makes soup, and we have hot rolls, and that's the meal. And then we open the Bible, and we read the Christmas story together. And then we open a simple present. Grandma always gives the kids pajamas for Christmas, and then we do something special for another family in our area, and we go home and get ready for Christmas together. So it's a very simple thing, but it's something we've done for a long time, and it's a time for us to remember why we celebrate this season, and a chance to be together, and that's the thing I value most, and I probably will value it even more this year than in years past.
Well, it's nice to get to know you just a little bit on a more personal basis, and we hope that we'll get to share more throughout the evening. Again, if you'd like to call and talk with Governor Cox, love to have you, and we have a limited time tonight, so it's 855-399-6800, 855-399-6800. I know one of the big things coming up is the legislative session starting just after the first of the year, and you have a budget to get ready. Where are you standing on that process right now, Governor?
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to the session that is coming, starting that second week in January. It goes for 45 days, one of the shortest sessions in the country. And we were very pleased to share our budget with the legislature earlier, well, just last week, in fact, just a week ago, as we unveiled what we believe is an important budget, and at the cornerstone of that budget, because we've been so successful, people have, if you followed this at all, understand that Utah has the best economy in the country right now. Most states still haven't recovered their jobs from COVID, from where they were before the COVID pandemic. Utah was one of only 2 states that recovered just in less than a year after the pandemic started, and we're well above in job creation where we were at the beginning of the pandemic, with unemployment at 2.2% and falling, and so we feel very good. And an important part of that budget is to make sure that we give money back to the people of Utah, and so we are proposing a $160 million tax decrease, and then spending the money we have very wisely, focusing on the things that matter to Utahns, like education, which we know is so important, making sure the next generation is ready for what comes after, focusing on the drought that we're facing all over the state of Utah, especially in southern Utah, making sure that we have enough water for our crops, our farms, our families, and the things that matter most, and then really continuing to prepare, making sure we have a high quality of life for the growth that is here and the growth that is coming. Utah is the fastest growing state over the last 10 years, and we need to make sure that we don't lose our quality of life as we grow, especially as we grow internally with our kids and grandkids, and then as more and more people are moving to Utah.
I'd like you to maybe expand on a phrase you just had, because I've heard it many, many times as I've talked with people throughout the state, here locally in our community, and I keep hearing this term quality of life. I know what it means to my mind. I'm wondering if you could express to the state who's tuned in with us tonight what a quality of life Utah brings in your mind, Governor.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because my definition of that has probably changed a little bit over the past few years. So I mean, my initial reaction is always to say, look, we want to make sure that we have a transportation system. Quality of life goes down when people are stuck in traffic. That's one thing that we know for sure. That nobody likes being stuck in traffic. People want to be able to enjoy the outdoors, and as our parks get crowded, making sure that we have recreation opportunities for people. That they can enjoy. Those are the things that I would traditionally have said for quality of life, and they still matter. But we did a survey, a giant survey, the biggest survey done in any state in history, about what people are looking for in their state. We did this a few years ago with some partners here, and what was interesting is people, when they got to the core, they didn't just ask the base questions. They actually drilled down, kind of like you're doing here. What do you really mean when you say that? And it turns out that what most people think of when they think of quality of life is they want to live in a place where they can be close to their children and their grandchildren. That's the thing that's most important to them. Now, all of those things I just talked about play into that. If the price of housing is so expensive that your kids and grandkids have to move somewhere else, then that's going to lower your quality of life, because you're not around the people you love, the people that you care about. That's the most important thing. And so of all the things that are happening in our state, I think the one I'm most concerned about is the price of housing and how quickly that is rising, because that is going to make it difficult for families that are just starting out to be able to live near where they grew up and near where their parents or grandparents are. And so that's the thing. We've been working on it with the legislature. We certainly have more to do, and I guess it's a good problem to have. It means that people like living where we are. And you would rather have that than places in the country where no one wants to live there. And so the price of housing is incredibly cheap. But we need to make sure that we have housing options and housing affordability for everyone that wants to be here and live close to their family members.
Spencer Cox is with us. This is the Direct Link program. It's heard monthly on the great radio stations throughout all of Utah. This is not strictly a Wasatch Front program, although we appreciate those who are tuned in tonight along the Wasatch Front. And again, invite you to call in. This is your chance to have a chat with the governor. So call. It's toll free, 855-399-6800, 855-399-6800. And Governor, we've talked about the growth here in the state. I was reading a release from the Hinckley Institute last week, and our little Iron County here, where I happen to be hanging out tonight, since the time of the census was released to the end of into this year, Iron County had the highest per capita growth rate at like 6.8%. Of course, we've seen the growth in Washington County, but there are other areas that are still struggling with smaller populations. And what are some of the plans you have to expand and bring the growth that's coming to areas like Washington County and the Wasatch Front into the Uinta Basin and into over in the Moab area and into Cache Valley?
Yeah, Tim, it's really interesting, and isn't it crazy what you're seeing down there in Iron County? I have a rural office in Iron County, so I spend a lot of time there. I actually have two boys that are part of that population growth, and that they're going to SUU, attending school down there, having a great experience in college. But what's fascinating about this one is we are seeing this growth and the price of housing increasing everywhere in the state of Utah. Every single community has seen significant increases in the price of housing and decreases in the number of homes available. So that's what's rare about this one, is it really is hitting everyone, but making sure economic opportunity is available everywhere. There are a lot of people in rural Utah and Fairview, where I live, and other places, who don't want the growth to come to their areas. They want to keep it the same, and yet they want to make sure that we have economic opportunity for our kids to be able to live there. That's part of the problem. We tend to export our kids. We're exporting our kids and importing people from California, and I don't think that's necessarily ideal either. And so we desperately want to change that. So we have several things that we're working on right now, and part of that is changing the incentives, the business incentives that we've done in the past. We'll have several bills that we're proposing in the legislature this year, and they seem to be getting a tremendous amount of support. One of those is to allow us to have greater incentives in rural areas that are struggling economically, and less incentives on the Wasatch Front, where we don't need to attract businesses as much. We have very low unemployment, and businesses are coming anyway, so we don't need to give any tax breaks there. So I think that's an important piece of it. Remote work is also a very important piece. I will tell you, I actually started a remote work program before I was governor, as lieutenant governor, making sure that we were sending state jobs to rural Utah and taking them off the Wasatch Front, and we've had tremendous success there. And since I've become governor, we have over 100 jobs that we have moved to the off the Wasatch Front to rural areas, and people are able to do those jobs. They're able to work from home or work from state offices in rural areas, make a great living, provide for their families. We've even moved some jobs off that aren't remote work. We have attorneys that are working in southern Utah on lands issues who used to be here in Salt Lake City. There's no reason to have them here. They should be out there closer to the people. Department of Workforce Services has moved dozens and dozens of jobs off the Wasatch Front. And so I've never been more optimistic about the opportunities for our kids, including my own kids, if they want to stay in Sanpete County, to be able to stay in Sanpete County and raise their families. And that should be exciting for everyone.
All right, Governor, thank you. Our toll-free number again is 855-399-6800. We're welcoming questions from all over the state. Wherever you're listening tonight, we appreciate you listening, and take the time to call if you like, 855-399-6800. Governor Don is calling in from Washington, has a question for you. Don, go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. We're all aware that the federal government has opened up the southern border, and we've got over 2 million people who have crossed illegally this year. These people are bringing crime, violence, disease, financial needs, educational needs, and they're easily a burden to states where they're being transported to and local communities. What do you plan to do to protect the citizens of Utah from this influx?
Yeah, thank you, Don. It's interesting. We've actually seen a decrease in migration from many of those in the South over the last couple of years. It hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and here in the state of Utah, and so we've been very fortunate to have again a growing economy, and be able to work through some of those issues. What I will tell you is, and this didn't get much attention either, but we had National Guard members at the border, over 100 that we had sent down there. They spent over a year there helping protect our border against some of the issues that you talked about. And I was able to welcome them home just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, one of them is a close friend of mine, the husband of someone I went to school with. And I was able to talk to him about their efforts down there along the border. I've been working very closely with border governors, Governor of Texas, Governor Ducey down in Arizona, and Governor DeSantis in Florida, who has some border there in the Panhandle area, and really just working with those governors as we've been able to talk through some of these issues and get added support for the federal government. Look, this immigration thing is really simple, and it's actually one of the things that Republicans and Democrats agree on. If you look at polling at this, immigration is along the southern border is actually one of the least controversial issues out there. Now, I know you're saying, wait, that can't be true because we fight about it all the time. And the truth is, we do fight about it all the time because politicians love to fight about it. It's a great issue, but Republicans and Democrats agree. What everyone agrees on, almost everyone agrees on, is that we need to secure the border, and that's why we sent our National Guard troops down there to help to secure that border. And then we need to improve legal immigration. People, by and large, aren't opposed to immigration. They just want it to be done legally, so we know who's coming over here. We make sure that we vetted the person. Part of the problem is that legal immigration is broken, and so only the wealthy are able to do it, and it's just too convoluted. And so, if we could do those two things, Republicans and Democrats would be happy. The problem is that Democrats love to campaign on allowing people to come into the country, and they don't focus, unfortunately, on the securing the border piece, which even Democrats don't like. Democrats that aren't running for office, and then Republicans just focus on the border security piece without focusing on the legal immigration piece. And so this is so easy to solve. We could solve it in one day if people would stop running for office on these issues and actually start trying to solve it. So I'm very optimistic as I talk to my fellow governors. There's a lot of support even among the border states to, again, secure the border and improve legal immigration. And that's how I would solve the issue if I had the opportunity.
All right, Don, thank you so much for your call. Again, our phone number is 855-399-6800. 855-399-6800. Maybe as a following up on what Don asked, what is it, and I'm using what as opposed to a different word here, what is it that worries you most about making its way into Utah, perhaps other than Omicron right now? I know we're all panicked about that. What is it that worries you most that might make its way into the state that you just soon see us not have to deal with?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, the pandemic piece of this and the Omicron variant is something that we're watching and that we're concerned about. Our biggest concerns have always been the drug trade and the fentanyl and some of these illegal drugs that have been making their way into it, and the problem that comes with that, the violence that comes with that, and the way that they've been able to, some of these narco traffickers, the drug kingpins have been able to prey upon our most vulnerable population, so our homeless population and others, where they help to get them addicted to the drugs and then use them to sell these drugs and really take advantage of them. That's something that I worry about and that keeps me up at night. As I already mentioned, with the extreme growth that we're having, I do get worried about the large in-migration that's coming into Utah from California and other places. Look, I tell them all the time, we love you. We're so glad you're here. We appreciate that you want to come here, that you're seeking a better life than whatever it was you had. We do have we do have lower taxes and lower regulation and more freedom, and the things that a great place to raise a family, beautiful outdoors. But I try to remind them, just remember why you left the place you're leaving, and don't turn us into where you left. Remember what's special about Utah. So I'm starting to worry a little bit more about the vast number of people. I will tell you, Tim, that we've always, even just 2 years ago, if you had asked me this question, our growth, and we were the fastest growing state in the nation then, our growth was mostly internal. It was at least 2 to 1 internal, that it was more children than people moving in here. But just this past year, that flipped for the first time. Now it's about 60-40 growth, 40% internal growth and 60% people moving into the state of Utah. So again, we're glad you're here, but remember what made us different and why you wanted to come here in the first place.
All right, Governor, 855-399-6800. We have about 5 minutes left, actually a few minutes, not quite 5 minutes left with the governor. So if you have a question, please call in quickly. You will be met by a call screener, so make sure you answer if they ask you your name, please. Governor, we've talked about drought, but I want to talk about something else a little bit here for a moment, because tonight our part of the state is bracing for what looks to be a pretty decent snowstorm. And I've noticed that some municipalities like Salt Lake County is having a problem getting enough snowplow drivers. How is the Utah Department of Transportation doing in that respect?
Yeah, we're doing okay. We could certainly use a few more. Our snowplow drivers, they're amazing. They're so dedicated. I've been able to spend time with them over the last couple months, and some of them will be working overtime. Some of them will be working some double shifts to make sure that they keep our roads clear. Every single industry in the state right now is having a challenge when it comes to employment and the labor force. We unfortunately, I guess, again, this is a good problem to have, but our unemployment is so low at 2.2%. Most economists say anything under 3.5% is full employment. So to be down around 2.2% and falling, by the way, that's the lowest in the history of our state. It means that everyone is having a hard time finding employees, whether you're looking for teachers, you're looking for waiters and waitresses, you're looking for doctors and nurses. It really doesn't matter. Snowplow drivers, bus drivers, there is a shortage all across the state, and so our thoughts tonight are with those snow fighters and their families that are going to be out there working around the clock to keep the roads clear. But I'll tell you, I'm certainly happy to see the snow in the forecast. We had a very wet October and a very dry November, and we desperately need the water. And it looks like December's working hard to catch up, and hopefully after these next couple storms, we'll be right around normal for the year.
Governor, we've got Jerry on the phone from Cache Valley. We've got about 2 minutes left. So, Jerry, I'm going to ask you to get your question quickly, and Governor will have not much time to respond.
Actually, it's Kerry, not Jerry.
My apologies.
Governor, I appreciate you taking the call. My perception of the Salt Lake Airport is that it has to be one of the least friendly airports I've ever traveled in, and I've done a fair amount of traveling. My question to you is, I don't know that you have any direct tied to that, but do you know of any improvements in being able to get people around so you're not walking miles where you're, limited in ability to do that, or a mother, juggling kids going through the airport, the distance, and did not see any vehicles that were transporting customers or travelers and their luggage.
Yeah, Carrie, thank you for the call, and thank you for listening. And let me say this. So first of all, the state of Utah does not have any authority or control over the airport. It is the Salt Lake City Airport, and it does belong to Salt Lake City, the municipality. That being said, I have been made aware that there are plans to improve that. There is a tunnel that is being made that will shorten significantly the walks of people as they move from one concourse to the other. There are several upgrades that were always planned, but just planned in phases as they move forward and move to get that airport operational. It is a beautiful airport. It's a great airport. Obviously, there are bigger airports in the country where you have to move, and in lots of them there are people movers of some sort, whether they are trains or otherwise. There are moving walkways in this airport, and again, it is a beautiful airport. But certainly there have been a lot of jokes going around about the pioneers crossing the plains and people walking long distances to get from one concourse to the other. I guess it's good exercise, but certainly can be problematic if you're running a little late. Or
Governor,
my wife and I, we have young kids, so we're working on it.
We're just up against. We know you have to go, and stations, we're going to take a break. Thanks for being with us, Governor Cox. We'll be back on Direct Link here from the Utah Broadcasters Association.
Good evening. I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. Since Monday, 12 Utahns died of COVID-19, and among Utah's 3,673 total COVID-19 deaths during the pandemic, 191 of them are from Cache, Box Elder, or Rich counties. The Utah Department of Health reported 920 new positive cases of coronavirus, 77 of those in northern Utah. That leaves the state's rolling 7-day average for positive tests at 1,107. Tuesday's COVID report indicates 498 Utahns are hospitalized with coronavirus, 5 fewer than Monday's report. Also, 200 of those patients are in intensive care, 4 fewer than Monday. Since the start of the pandemic, total COVID hospitalizations now number 26,752. The Navajo Nation on Monday reported 19 new confirmed COVID-19 cases, but no additional deaths. The latest numbers push the tribe's total to 40,519 cases since the pandemic began. The known death toll remains at 1,562. Tribal health officials reported 23 cases on Sunday, plus 1 death. Winter storm warning is in effect from 8 o'clock this evening till 11 o'clock Wednesday morning for the Cache Valley and also for the mountains, also eastern Box Elder County and the northern Wasatch Front under this winter storm warning. Rain and snow this evening, then snow after midnight, much colder, accumulation 2 to 4 inches on the valley floor, 4 to 8 inches on the benches, low near 20. Slight chance of snow in the morning tomorrow, much colder, only upper 20s for the high. It was 53 today. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. For the home was built by Visionary Homes, you see. Quality, craftsmanship, floor plan, perfect for me. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. Ma in her kitchen and I settled in, my great room, my easy chair, my remote in my hand. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but Saint Nick himself and 8 tiny reindeer.
Why, who built this home? It's so beautifully done.
I replied simply, go to buildwithvisionary.com. Happy holidays from Visionary Homes.
This is Detective Micah Veers with the Logan Police Department and the Utah Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. The police department will be hosting a 1-hour child sexual predator and internet safety presentation for the community on Tuesday, December 14th at 6 p.m. in the Logan City Council chambers. This presentation is for adults and covers mature topics such as psychology of a sex offender, signs of child grooming and molestation, child pornography, and other internet sex crimes, as well as information about social media and general internet safety. So please join the Logan City Police Department on Tuesday, December 14th at 6 p.m. in the Logan City Council chambers.
Hey everybody, coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. The COVID numbers keep going up. What are the policies going to be in the blue states? And what does it look like for freedom in the rest of the country? Plus, Clay?
We'll bring in Alex Berenson, our COVID data expert. We'll see what he thinks is the latest numbers storyline. Plus, Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. It'll be the Clay and Buck Show. Come hang.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM. Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
As our world changes, we'll keep you up to date. News Talk KVNU 102 FM 610 AM. Also on the new KVNU mobile app.
This is Direct Link from the Utah Broadcasters Association. My name is Tim Nesmith. I am the morning show co-host at KSUB Talk Radio 1077 and 590 AM in Cedar City, Utah. Generally, we'd be going back to a discussion with Governor Spencer Cox, but Governor Cox had another commitment this evening, and it was an important one, so we wanted to let him go. But we're happy to welcome Steve Lisonbee with us. Steve, you know, we need to figure this out better next time, okay?
All right.
Steve is with the rural office of Governor Cox, which is in Cedar City. And I happen to be also in Cedar City. We should have maybe gotten together on this instead of being in separate places. But we do welcome you to the show tonight. And if you'd like to visit with Steve and get some rural insights to Governor Cox's plans, 855-399-6800 is our number. 855-399-6800. All right, Stephen, let me just say, I read with some interest that the governor would have office. It's kind of new territory, I think, for a governor to do, and then was awfully excited to see it located here at Southern Utah University here in Cedar City. I want to start off with this question and ask you, what was the end game with starting an office outside of the Wasatch Front? What is it that the governor was trying to convey to the state by coming off the Wasatch Front?
Well, Tim, great to be here. That's a fun question to answer. And if you followed Governor Spencer Cox over his tenure in previous administration and during his campaign, one of the things that was most important to him is to be proximate to the people, right? There was a tour out to all the cities and towns throughout the state where he spent time with them, and it informed him in such a way that, just realized, hey, I need to spend time, with the people and to have access to them where we can convene and meet. And so the idea of having a secondary office off the Wasatch Front into a rural community made sense. And, in Cedar City for a long time has been known as a convening place for a lot of rural Utah, and has led that effort for a long time. So it was a natural fit.
What is it that is facing, Stephen, you have a chance to perhaps get input from constituents in some of the smaller parts of the state, the rural areas of the state. What is it you're hearing most that is the biggest concern for those of us that live in the smaller portion of Utah?
Well, interesting enough, there's some of the same concerns across the state, whether in a small community or large community. Right now, access to water is top of the list. Discussing ways around ensuring there's a quality of life, right? And that means access to broadband so that we can continue education with the new models that we saw implemented in 2020. The ability to afford housing. Even some of our smallest communities have seen cost of housing increase. And so the same things that we're seeing in urban, we're seeing in rural. And we just have to come together collectively across urban and all of rural to work together on these collective solutions, rather than, asking, one small community in rural Utah to come up with solutions on their own. And that's a really interesting approach to how the governor has led his administration in this first year with the One Utah approach, where we're all in this together. The best solutions can be implemented regardless of the location, and our rural communities are having exposure to the same concerns that our urban communities are.
One thing that happens a lot is that obviously we've just went through the redistricting efforts and we're trying to make our political impacts. I was reading again this. I mentioned this earlier when Governor Cox was with us, from the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute, And one of the things I found interesting, I mentioned that Iron County had the highest growth rate from July 2020 to July 2021. But that's not the number that interests me most. I mean, because 6% growth in Iron County, while it's great, that's not as many numbers as the 0.8% growth that happened in Salt Lake County, because to make a percent difference in Salt Lake City, you have to have a whole lot more numbers. But what did interest me was what counties were contributing to the growth of the state. One county along the Wasatch Front, that was Utah County, did contribute about 1/3 of the growth from, again, July 2020 to July 2021. Then it was Washington County coming in at 12.5%, Davis, Weaver, Cache, Iron, and Tooele counties contributing between 7.7% and 5.1%. In fact, the only county to lose population in the last year was Garfield County. They saw actually a net loss. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing that, and especially I'm thinking of what's happening in St. George and Washington County, that's building a base that at least politically is going to need to be reckoned with, don't you think?
Well, so one of the things you brought up is the regional growth that we're seeing, right? You mentioned Tooele, Cache, Cedar, kind of the Iron area. Those are regional areas that have that interesting mix in the community of access to some larger things that typically you see in an urban community, but the taste and the feel of a more traditional rural community. You also mentioned, Cache and Iron. They have institutions of higher learning, right? So there's access to other things there. So the growth would seem natural to happen in some of those locations as a secondary, growth. And I think you'll see more of those areas growing, right? And so you mentioned to be reckoned with. Well, I would probably argue two things. One, we have a legislative body that works so well together, right? They some of the biggest champions for rural Utah have been urban legislators that have exposure or history of being connected to rural, or lock arms with some of the rural legislators. And that same approach is happens with the executive side, within your cabinet leadership, with the governor. And so that one Utah approach really is a way to neutralize that kind of reckoning, because we're all in this together, right? And we're all realizing that we all have a seat at the table, and we're all able to work through the growth collectively. And one of the things I want to bring up is, you mentioned to the governor his budget. Well, in his budget, he has identified a way to, throughout the state, provide funding so that regional planning can take place. And that regional planning is designed to be weaved together at the state level, so all areas of the state have a growth plan collectively together. And it removes that partnership. So, we're now working together on this. So yes, growth, it's exciting for some communities and not for others, but we're doing it together.
All right, Stephen, thank you very much. Stephen Lisonbee is with the Rural Office of Governor Spencer Cox here at Southern Utah University at Cedar City. And Stephen, we've got Dylan on the call tonight. Dylan, happy to have you calling in from the Uinta Basin out there in Vernal. What's your question?
I was just wondering about any info on the Uinta Basin Railway coming to Vernal to help out the energy industry.
Dylan, great question. The Uinta Rail has been a priority for a long time, and it's been really encouraging as we've come in this last year. His administration has spent time with the leadership in the Uinta Basin to see what work has been done, right, by the coalition in the 7th county, as well as a lot of leadership within the county leadership. There's been a lot of progress, right? There's the kind of this time period to kind of hold and determine whether or not the analysis is where it needs to be to kind of to get the I just forgot the word, but to get the recognition federally to say, yes, move forward with the investment, right? So there are so many pieces in place already on this. It's still in process. The federal government has an ability to kind of have this time period where they're evaluating, and that's where we're at. I think they've collected all their feedback through October. They're looking at that evaluation, but we've got funding, partnerships, great will, great effort, all in this. It's just a lengthy process to go through, but we think this could be a huge win for all of Utah to open up that access on that railway. So we're excited. It was a priority on the governor's map as an infrastructure project. So Tom Carter with the Office of Energy is taking a lead role and staying connected with the coalition that's taking the lead on that effort.
Stephen Lisonbee is with us. He is the director of the office for Governor Cox at Utah University, which is here in Cedar City, where I happen to be tonight. We're happy to have you with us wherever you are along the network of Utah Broadcasters Association stations. We are going to take a break, but we'll be back. If you have something you'd like to ask Mr. Lisonbee, call us at 855-399-6800, 855-399-6800. This is Direct Link, Utah Broadcasters Association.
Advanced Heating and AC, the gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah, is teaming up with Carrier Heating and Cooling. Carrier provides you with the best furnace units available. And now is the best time to buy a new unit before the weather turns Cache Valley cold. Financing options are available. Turn to the experts at Advanced Heating and AC and Carrier. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning at 752-7272. Stop by their showroom west of DI. Online, advancedheating-ac.com. Hey, it's Al Lewis. We all know buttons make our lives easier. But if you have sleep apnea and can't use CPAP, did you know there's a button that can help you go from this to this? It's called Inspire. It's a small device that works inside your body with just the click of a remote. That's right, a button. If you struggle with CPAP, great sleep awaits at InspireSleep.com. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire's not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org. JustServe.org is provided as a service by The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hi, I'm Carson Kressley. Of all the most valuable resources in the world, kindness is the most precious. For more than 140 years, American Humane has been working to make the world a kinder place for animals. Rescuing those caught in disasters, protecting animals on our farms, on the silver screen, and the world's remarkable and endangered species who need our care to help them survive. All of us can make a difference by making humane choices at the supermarket, in our choice of entertainment, and by supporting conservation and rescue efforts. It's not hard at all. Make being kind a lifestyle choice and visit AmericanHumane.org for simple ways you can help build a more caring, compassionate, and humane world for animals and for all of us.
Updates every 30 minutes and breaking news as it happens. News Talk KVNU, your #1 radio station for news and talk.
This is Direct Link from the Utah Broadcasters Association on several stations here in the state of Utah. We thank you for your time. Steve Lisonbee is with us as Governor Cox had to leave at 6:30. Steve is the Senior Advisor of Rural Affairs. Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. And we have Mike on the phone. Mike calling from right here in Cedar City. So Southern Utah represents tonight. Mike, go ahead with your question. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is that the new prison that we're building is actually going to have less capacity than the current one we're using. As our population is increasing and as our, I don't know, from my perception, it seems like violent crime is going up. It seems to be not necessarily a good idea. I'm wondering if the governor has any plans on how to address, a larger population, violent crime increasing, yet a prison that's going to actually be smaller.
Yeah, Mike, I want to make sure I heard the question clearly up front. So you mentioned that, the prison, the state prison in Salt Lake that we're building will have smaller capacity. And the concern is that crime up, does that correlate? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, both the crime up and a population that's increasing. Usually if you have a bigger population, you're going to have more of a need for the criminal justice system to take care of some of those problems. And so that's my concern. My understanding is that and maybe I'm wrong, but as I looked it up, it looks like the state right now that we have in Draper would actually house more inmates than the one they're building.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I really appreciate the question. So there's several aspects to this conversation, right? So, the state facilities are a part of a broader network, right? So you have county facilities, state facilities, and federal facilities, and they all work together jointly on capacity, right? So, we recognize that state facilities have contracts for federal inmates. We recognize that the county contracts have contract for state and federal inmates, and so the capacity of one location may not tell the full story of everything. So that's kind of one aspect to it. And for just a moment, entertain me on this. It's actually interesting concept for a rural community, right? So a rural community, has an ability to generate jobs and economic growth by securing some contracts with the state or federal government. We see that. I think you mentioned you're from Cedar City. That's a situation right there. Beaver, Washington, Kane counties right there in this region you live in. So we know that some of those communities have built, beyond what their communities need to be able to help offset some of that, right? So that's one aspect. The other thing is we know violent crime is an issue across the United States, right? This is a trend we have seen. And with that, one of the things that Utah is attempting to do is their efforts to try and change the way people are incarcerated, via the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, right? So there is a different approach to say, okay, wait a minute, how are we doing this? When people are incarcerated, what processes we work through to be able to help rehabilitate, invest into them. So we know that's a second piece to this discussion. And Utah is really leading efforts on this area in the nation. This kind of Justice Reinvestment Initiative, JRI is often referred to in the state. So that's another piece. And then additionally, our public safety leadership across the state government have just completed a road tour where they engaged and listened to sessions to hear from experts in law enforcement and mental health. And those ideas are being collated and discussed and could potentially lead to changes in the administration of our justice system. So I share those kind of three-pronged approaches because just knowing the capacity of the state facility doesn't entirely tell the full story, but it is a piece, and it's a great question. And this, I'm just going to end on this. This is why the One Utah approach is so brilliant to these efforts, because counties, the state, the federal government, we have to work together. And then we have to work for a legislative body to come up with ways to invest into things. So we're not just putting band-aids on things, but that will cost our future generations money. We're really innovating ways to do things, to move things forward. So Mike, I hope that answered your question.
I think Mike might have already listened off the air. Thank you for calling. 855-900. Lisonbee is the senior advisor for Rural Affairs to Governor Spencer Cox with us on the Direct Link program. I want to ask another question that has statewide impact. And I'm saying the word inland port, that causes all kinds of consternation among some. And a lot of people see that as a Wasatch Front only type situation, and it will, of course, have an impact there. And they're having great discussions there. But other communities will be involved. Stephen, if I'm not mistaken, Cedar is in the mix. Can you tell us the impact of the port, what you see, plus side of it coming to the entire state of Utah?
Yeah, so I love this question. So the idea of having inland port, right, that allows Utah to be in the game, right, that where right now we're relying on other locations to manage that game for us, right? It gives us access to be able to say, freighters come on, they don't have to sort and do things in a very, physically constrained area. They can drop them on rails, put them right into Utah, and allows us to be able to then sort and distribute from Utah, right? Like that vision is brilliant, and then it opens up the return access for Utah to collect, sort, and ship out of that area. And so it's a brilliant investment move, and it opens up access for all of Utah to have that to be able to leverage that point of entry, so to speak. Right now, there are we know there's one kind of hub in Salt Lake, and we know that there are, whenever there's a hub for anything, there's spokes that connect into it. And so we know that a lot of the rural communities are looking at spokes to connect in, whether roadway, railway, whatever they need to be. And we know that will help a great deal with the supply chain issues, the transportation. Connectivity in Utah is really designed well. We've got a couple key rail systems in and out of Utah. And so you talk specifically about Cedar City and Iron County. And this example I'll share can be used for a wide range of communities in rural Utah. But the idea is that if, in Cedar City, you've got Port 15 that has a conglomerate of companies that can leverage that access point. They have a rail spur coming in. Well, they can quickly tie in up and down into Salt Lake, which then goes out to 3 different ports. I mean, it's a brilliant plan, a brilliant approach. Now, I've got this theme going back. It takes a cooperative approach to be able to say, what does the hub do? How does a spoke connect in? And it's really interesting too to think about it that the Utah Inland Port Authorities has several goals, right? So one of them is to reduce air emissions by like 21% over the next 30 years, and by putting their model in place, they can help lower air emissions, right, and clean up the air, and it can also then give access to reduced cost, increased jobs, and they've developed 20-something plus partnership agreements, all kind of working on this idea where you can do electrical vehicles, electrical movement in the port. So anyways, I'm kind of moving on and on. It's exciting. It's a really big deal for rural Utah, where we can now be attached to creating these smaller manufacturing and other supply chain companies that can tie into the state hub.
Well, Stephen, we appreciate your time tonight, and we look forward to more for rural Utah. And I'm glad that you have a chance to visit with Governor. And you've got an office set up off the Wasatch Front. We're not trying to play the great contributions to the state from the Wasatch Front, but it's nice to know that we're not forgotten here in rural Utah. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is going to bring us to the conclusion of our show. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association. Tune into this station every other month for Direct Link.
If you've been with the same insurance company for many years, you're probably experiencing rate creep. Hi, this is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. What is rate creep? This is where your rates increase every year, but your agent doesn't have any other options for you. Auto Owners Insurance and Quality First will give you options. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101, right in front of Fisher Home Furnishings. For more information, go to q1ins.com.
This is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. We often hear people say, I wish I could use White Pine, but I've already paid for arrangements elsewhere. Know that if you've already pre-planned with a different funeral home, you can still call White Pine. If you are being told you'll lose up to 25% of your money, White Pine will provide a discount equal to any fee for switching. If you have any questions, please stop by for a visit or give us a call. We would love to meet you and explain in more detail.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Hey there, I'm Lance Bass, and this is CHIP. For more than 100 years, American Humane has been on the front lines protecting animals in times of crisis. From Pearl Harbor to 9/11, the California wildfires, and the coronavirus pandemic, American Humane Rescue has provided life-saving assistance for animals in virtually every major national disaster. If you're anything like me, your pets mean the world to you. And if disaster strikes, you want to keep them safe. To prepare for an oncoming disaster, ensure your pet has secure and up-to-date identification. And if you must evacuate, remember to take your disaster preparedness kit with you. To learn more about disaster planning and how to keep your best friends safe, please visit AmericanHumane.org.
News Talk KVNU, Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM. The power of information.